Former Chief Justice Rehnquist on the U.S. Supreme Court made his name in Republican politics rather famously. He was quite proud of it. Back in the 60s, he's a very tall white guy. He was 6'2", 6'3", quite an imposing figure. And he would, at election time, he lived in Phoenix, he would go to polling places where large numbers of Native Americans, Hispanics, or African Americans were voting and stand in the line at the front door, and as a lawyer, Republican lawyer, challenge every single person's right to vote, and in many cases in loud, threatening, and intimidating ways. He was quite famous for this, and it really helped him rise through the ranks of the Republican Party. About that time, Paul Weyrich was getting active in Republican politics. By 1980, he was running the Reagan campaign, and he had just co-founded, along with John Kasich, the governor of Ohio right now, he had co-founded in the late 70s a group called the American Legislative Exchange Council, ALEC. And within the year after he had co-founded ALEC, and while he was helping to run the Reagan campaign, Paul Weyrich had this to say to a group of Republican Christian activists, Republicans in a church in Dallas, Texas, who were getting it ready to go out and work on, quote, poll work, basically doing what Rehnquist had been doing. Here's Paul Weyrich, the co-founder of the Heritage Foundation, co-founder of ALEC.
Now, many of our Christians have what I call the goo-goo syndrome, good government. They want everybody to vote. I don't want everybody to vote. Elections are not won by a majority of people. They never have been from the beginning of our country, and they are not now. As a matter of fact, our leverage in the elections, quite candidly, goes up as the voting populace goes down.
And now we have the situation in Wisconsin where a federal judge has said, this ALEC law, Paul Weyrich's organization, this ALEC law that the Wisconsin legislature passed, requiring people to have certain types of ID, student ID doesn't count, certain types of ID to vote, is legal. You can do it. It's going to require 300,000 people to get this ID. That's 6,000 people a day between now and November 4th. And in 48 of the state's 72 counties, the DMV is only open 2 days a week, and those exclusively on weekdays. So people who are poor enough that they don't own a car, thus don't have a driver's license, people who are elderly, people who are disabled, and students who have not yet reached the point where they have enough money to own a car. In fact, they're probably broke because of their student debt. Don't have this ID and will not be able to vote. 300,000 people, Scott Walker, in the spirit of Paul Weyrich, has knocked off the voting rolls of Wisconsin. Kevin Jackson is with us. He's the executive director of the Black Sphere, columnist and syndicated radio host. The Black Sphere, SPHERE.net is the website. Kevin, welcome to the program.
Thanks, Tom. Good to be here.
Good to have you. How can you defend this?
I love your setup, man. It has got about as much spin on it.
It is absolutely factual.
No, factual notwithstanding, what you're essentially going over, or I should say omitting, is the idea that I need to know who you are. All the other stuff is meaningless. It would be like me going into your bank and saying, I'm Thom Hartmann, and I want to make a withdrawal of all the money in Thom Hartmann's account, and them saying to me, well, no problem, and not asking me for ID.
Well, Kevin, actually, you might be able to go into my bank and get something if you had my signature. The ability to sign supersedes. I mean, it's always been considered in American politics as a stronger form of identification. It's harder to fake somebody's signature than to fake their ID.
You know it. That's absolute nonsense. I can't. When they ask me for my ID, for example, when I go to do anything that for Obamacare or whatever, I guarantee you I'm going to have to match up who I am with my license or something. You can't move around this country without valid ID. So let's say that everything
can easily move around this country without valid ID. And besides that, most people who are disabled or who are elderly are not moving around this country.
That's absolute ridiculous. Everything that you just said there is patently false.
According to the Republican Party in Wisconsin, there's 300,000 people in Wisconsin who won't be eligible to vote in this election, and virtually all of them are either poor, black, Hispanic, elderly, or young.
There you go again. Everybody that you think you need to help. Let me tell you something. If somebody's
everybody that the Republicans don't want to vote, yes.
So, Tom, let me ask you this. What you're telling me then is the ability to get on a plane makes you is inherently just against the people that you just named.
Kevin, what you are defending is
what I'm defending is something very simple. The right to vote is supposedly our number one precious thing as a citizen. What you're saying is anybody who wants to challenge that and make sure that somebody is validly voting in an election is somehow racist or against everybody. I think that's patently ridiculous.
So let me get this straight. I just want to understand this.
Sure.
We know that we have had over the last 14 years 31 cases of in-person voter fraud out of 1 billion votes cast. Republican attorneys general will tell you this. 31 cases in 13 years. And so it's a non-problem. And you want big government to spend hundreds of millions of dollars all across the United States creating an elaborate ID scheme, which is absolutely unnecessary, simply to inflate the size of government. And by the way, as a side effect, it's going to knock 300,000 people off the voting rolls in Wisconsin, 400,000 people off the voting rolls in South Carolina, 270,000 people off the voting rolls in Georgia. But, hey, that's the price you pay to prevent 31 people from illegally voting over a 13-year period.
Is that it? 31 people are the only people that have tried. Yeah. Well, I would suggest you get researchers to do a little bit better job, because if you Google voter fraud and voter valid ID and these measures that are preventing people, that are actually allowing illegals to vote, you're going to have a very different idea around that.
No illegals voting, Kevin. There is no.
I want to make one other point.
Wait a second. You just invoked the whole, oh my God, the Mexicans are going to come over here and vote. It's one of the most racist arguments that these Republicans make, and B, what person who is in the United States without documentation illegally and takes a chance literally every day they get on a bus or go someplace, taking a chance with their life, is going to walk into a voting booth, is going to stand into a place where they know that they're going to be challenged. Their name has to be on the list. They have to have a signature that matches. It's a fantasy, Kevin. You have hook, line, and sinker. You have bought this fantasy from these rich white guys.
Tom, you should at least let them talk. The fantasy is this. The fantasy is every argument that you're waging. I would ask it very simply to you. If you believe that the right to vote is the most precious thing of a citizen, why are you so hell-bent on keeping people from validating that people are legitimately able to vote?
Kevin, if you believe that the right to vote is so important, why are you hell-bent on denying people the right to vote?
I'm not.
How can you support 300,000 people being thrown off the voting rolls in Wisconsin?
Nonsense. But that's absolutely nonsense, because you know what? Here's the thing. What happens with you guys? You make a statement about who can or can't do something, and you believe that the people will just accept it. I'm not going to accept it, Tom. As I've said to you before on your program, I'm a black person. I grew up in poverty. I've managed to figure out how to get a valid ID. I know how to get valid ID. You want me to believe that I'm too stupid to get a valid ID, and everybody else you named, Mexicans,
Kevin, this argument that is the most patronizing, racist thing. I'm astounded that you would even say that, to suggest that I'm suggesting that you're stupid somehow.
Oh, you are. That's exactly what you're doing.
No, I'm suggesting that you're a shill.
No. What you don't believe is that black people who are handicapped don't understand. Hey, can I call my cousin to go take me down to get an ID? As I said to you before, if it takes me getting an ID to get to your money at your bank account, or to get on a plane, or to get a reasonable ticket, or to do the things that I need, I can't even pick up my tickets from Will Call without a valid ID. And you think I'm too stupid to get one?
Kevin, I'll leave you with the last word. Kevin, I'm trusting our listeners and viewers to have enough common sense to sort this argument out. Kevin Jackson, you can read his stuff over at theblacksphere.net. Thanks, Kevin.
We'll be back.